Aloha and welcome to the Farrington Highway Corridor Study Virtual ʻāina Meeting Round 2. Because our world has been changing dramatically with the COVID-19 pandemic, we are transitioning the second and third rounds of ʻāina meetings from in-person to virtual online platforms. My name is Jared Chang. I'm with SSFM and I will be starting the presentation. Before we start, please note that this presentation, along with other project outreach materials, will be available at the project website address provided at the end of this presentation. Here is a slide that lists the individuals working on this project from the State Department of Transportation and consultant team. This project is being led by the DOT Highways Planning Branch under Ken Tatsuguchi and Project Manager Patrick Tom. Joining me in this presentation are Sue Lebron and Melissa May from SSFM. In the remainder of this presentation, we will cover meeting goals, project updates, what we have heard from the community so far, and the proposed solutions for safety, congestion, and resilience improvements. And finally, we want to provide instructions on how to review proposed solutions and provide your input back to the project team. Our overall goal for this second round of ʻāina meetings are to continue to collaborate with the community and work together to develop solutions. We will share what input has been collected to date through meetings, surveys, and the online interactive map. We also want to share the preliminary solutions that were developed based on input received. And finally, we are seeking your input on the preliminary solutions and we'll show you how to provide that input back to the project team. Now, I'm going to briefly recap where we are in the project process. The Department of Transportation Highways Division is conducting this study to determine the long-term vision and management for Farrington Highway Corridor. The study will analyze and identify short-term and long-term multimodal solutions that address safety, congestion, and resilience. Our understanding of short-term is projects that can be implemented in 6 months to 2 years, and long-term projects are those that may take up to 20 years. This slide shows where we are in the planning process and highlights places where community input takes place. We are currently in the phase where solutions are being developed, and the purpose of this second round of ʻāina meetings are primarily to share the draft solutions proposed and to gather input for refinement. This slide shows our technical work completed to date, which have focused on highway operations and second access. As part of this project, we have engaged high school students from the community to participate in the planning and design process. Through OceanIt, we will be working with students and others to train them in the Aloha AI technology for counting vehicles and pedestrians along Farrington Highway. This work will involve installing 4 remote-powered cellular-based sensors that are trained to recognize and count vehicles and pedestrians. The counts are uploaded to an online database and will be available to the project team as an Excel spreadsheet and online dashboard. The counts will be used to assist the study in developing additional multimodal solutions, including looking at the 5th lane extension, contraflow extension from Haleʻilua to Hakimo Road. In the next section, we're going to hear from Melissa White, who will share what we've heard from the community so far and all the mana'o that has been provided.
Aloha. I'd like to go through the community engagement activities to date for the project. As you can see on this slide, there's been a number of activities, including engagement with agencies and elected officials, neighborhood board presentations, and coordination with the neighborhood board transportation committees for both Waianae and Nānākul, stakeholder meetings, a driving and walking audit with elected officials and key stakeholders in February of this year, the KMAP school coordination and youth engagement that Jared spoke about, the first round of ʻāina meetings, which happened in February, took place in Waianae and Nānākul in those communities, and an online survey and interactive map, which has been available through the project website, and both of which have closed as of April 24th. So some of the things that we've heard during these activities, I just want to highlight the ʻāina meetings, round one. There was a variety of topics discussed. The purpose of these meetings was to identify issues and ideas that people experience moving around Farrington Highway. And as you can see, there were 2 meetings. We had close to 60 attendees and over 76 comments. The hot topics, the kind of the main themes that came out of these include safety, both short and long-term solutions to make the road safer, emergency access to provide a permanent long-term second access to the area, traffic congestion and providing alternative mobility options, resilience to make sure that the roadway and development can withstand flooding and sea level rise and hazards, and then the overall theme of increasing job opportunities and managing development so that new development in the area considers traffic impacts and people have less need to commute long distances to reach their jobs. So as Jared mentioned, the primary focus of this study is solutions for safety, congestion, and resilience. And so we used this input from these meetings to develop preliminary solutions that will be presented today. Just a few highlights from the survey that closed on April 24th. Here's what we heard from about 143 respondents. So the vast majority of the people that responded to the survey use a car as their primary means of getting around, around 85%. Their second option for getting around is typically another household member's car. Walking or taking the bus were cited as common secondary modes of travel if people didn't take motor vehicles. And quite a few people said that they would walk or bike to get around for activities other than work and school. 17% said they would walk, 7% said they would bike. And where the respondents came from, it turns out that they were relatively evenly distributed between the 4 communities along the corridor, Mākaha, Waianae, Maili, and Nānākul. And well over half have lived on the leeward coast for over 20 years. And well, the great majority of people leave the west side for work or school, over 70%. And the main other reasons that people said they leave the area is for medical health services and cultural religious purposes. A lot of people cited Waianae as the main destination on the west side for work, school, shopping, parks and sports, health services, and other activities, with Nānākul as a close second in most categories, with the exception that Mākaha was a major recreational and ocean sports destination. So perceptions of safety along Farrington Highway indicated that people felt cyclists at night were most at risk, senior pedestrians at night as a close second, and youth pedestrians at night. So indicating that people felt vulnerable users were most at risk, particularly at night. Similarly, people rated the ease of travel along Farrington Highway generally as poor for walking and bicycling. And for getting around by bus, there was a lot of indicated need for improvement in feeling of safety, bus stops being well lit and comfortable, and bus stops being in good condition. We asked people to rate their short and long-term transportation priorities, and it turns out that the top short-term priorities and the top long-term were the same, with similar levels of importance placed on them. Everybody felt that reducing traffic congestion was a key priority, providing secondary access and reducing pedestrian and bicycle crashes. These were the top 3 across the board, which actually lines up quite well with the study's focus areas of congestion, safety, and resilience. We asked people what improvements they'd like to see in the corridor, and these are the summary of the results that came up most frequently. Sidewalks, safer and more sidewalks, more comfortable sidewalks that have a greater buffer between the sidewalks and the moving traffic, and sidewalks in better condition. Crosswalks, people felt they should be safer, better lit, and have flashing lights or other safety devices to help pedestrians be more visible. And we asked people what kind of bike facilities would encourage them to bike more along Farrington Highway. And not surprisingly, the most people felt that a separated bike path, such as that shown in this slide, would be the most comfortable, followed by protected bike lanes that provide a little bit of a buffer between the bicyclists and the traffic. Marked bike lanes, about 10% of people said that those, such as the top photograph shows, would encourage them to bike more if they were provided. And a good number of people said they would like to see more bike facilities along Farrington Highway. Moving on to the online interactive map. So this was a complement to the survey. It allowed people to provide very specific input about locations that they felt needed improvement or where they had an idea for a solution. And this map enabled people to drop a pin, such as make it safer to bike here, loading zones, lighting, and intersection improvements. It also enabled people to drop lines with their comments. And you can see the categories on the left side of this slide. So the categories of line comments and pin comments, and you can see which ones were most common. A lot of people had their own ideas, open-ended comments for the area, and there were a lot of comments related to traffic congestion and intersection improvements, and quite a bit of input on areas where people felt it needed to be safer for pedestrians. But as you can see, we got some input in pretty much every category. I'm going to hand it over to Sue LeBrun now to talk about the preliminary solutions that are being presented for your input today.
Aloha, everybody, and thank you for joining us. We'll start with, I'll be going over the solutions for safety, congestion, and resilience that we came up with to address some of the concerns that were brought to us by the community. But first, I'll be going through what we heard from the survey, just summarizing some of the things that Melissa brought up in her slides. Next slide. All right, on the issue of addressing safety, we heard from people that they're just traffic crashes are a concern. Pedestrian visibility in crosswalks is an issue, especially at night. The road is, people perceive the road to feel unsafe for pedestrians and cyclists, again, especially at night, and that speeding is an issue. So some of the ideas that came up were to improve the lighting and pedestrian visibility, especially at night, improve the crosswalks visibility and safety with various treatments, upgrading the existing sidewalks and install new sidewalks where it's missing, improve the access to bus stops and shelters and safe routes to schools. And again, reducing driver speed is something that's desired. Next slide. For addressing congestion, what we heard from the community is just people feel like they spend too much of their lives in traffic and that their time is valuable, and still development is happening, so traffic is increasing even more. So the issues that came up was especially traffic congestion. It's bad during school and peak hours, both in the morning and evening. Contraflow, while it helps, is also confusing at times and limits the ability to make turns. It's difficult to turn on to Farrington Highway from the side streets. There's too many traffic lights and they're not well synchronized. And overdevelopment has created more traffic issues. So some ideas were to extend the 5th lane and provide alternate routes just so we could offload some traffic. Provide a center turn lane wherever possible. Deceleration or right turn lanes were a request. Improve signal timing and coordination. Bus express lanes or pullouts. Promoting alternatives to driving by other modes. Increasing economic and job opportunities so people can stay on the Leeward Coast and not have to go to Honolulu for work. And require new development to consider impacts on the traffic. Next slide. So for addressing resilience, what we heard from the community is, again, about traffic congestion. So when crashes happen, there's a safety issue and just that people are stuck where they are and they can't get past it. There's major drainage issues, high surf and flooding at a number of locations. There's a management plan needed for traffic during crashes when there's an emergency. Dumping and pollution are issues. Some ideas that came up: complete the Waianae Coast Emergency Access Road system. We need a permanent solution for an alternative access, increasing Mākaha connectivity, and provide clear short-term and long-term solutions for guidance. So on the next slide, I'll be going into the solutions, and I'll be spending a lot of time on this slide. It's the preliminary solutions for safety. So I'll give you a little bit of the background on how these were selected. The DOT provided us with 4 years of crash data, 694 crash incidents. These intersections had the highest crash rates, these ones that you see highlighted here. The US DOT and Federal Highway Administration fund a program that gathers crash studies from around the US. It lists the studies and their countermeasures and findings, and even rates the quality of the studies. It's a data-rich source for finding countermeasures that have proven effective on other sites. It gives CMFs, crash modification factors, that indicate how the expected number of crashes may be reduced with a given countermeasure. A CMF of 0.8 indicates a reduction in crashes of 20%. For example, a couple of years ago, Farrington Highway received centerline rumble strips. The CMF website cites 3 urban rumble strip studies with CMFs ranging from 0.36 to 0.91. So the expected crashes would, in theory, go down between 9 and 64%. The countermeasures listed on this slide were targeted to address specific types of crashes at these intersections. The most prevalent crash types with identifiable countermeasures were, in order, rear end, pedestrian, and angle or left turn crashes. So our overall solutions, if you look in the upper right-hand box there, LED signal lights, it may have already been converted in a lot of these places, but if not, just something as simple as changing from incandescent signal lights to LED can reduce crashes by 17%. We're recommending the installation of bright street lighting for the crosswalks, both signalized and unsignalized, so that pedestrians can show up at night. One study found that just changing the luminescence from low to medium decreased pedestrian crashes by 47%. We're recommending adding sidewalk on both sides. And if you focus your attention to Nānākul, that pink dashed line that goes from Piliokahi to Hakimo, we're recommending to upgrade and widen the sidewalk there. And then up near Maili from Kaukama to Maileili, we're recommending sidewalks and bike lanes. Most of the bike crashes were concentrated in that area, so they have a demonstrated need. We're recommending to ensure the curb ramps are ADA compliant. And then it goes into the bikeways. And also, if you see that green dashed line that goes along the bottom of Farrington Highway, that's a proposed shared use path. So it would give a safe way for bikes and pedestrians and skateboards and other modes to just go back and forth without conflicting with traffic. There's those yellow zones that show, those 3 yellow zones that show up are reduced speed zones, and we're suggesting to install speed feedback signs, just to remind people that when they go into this area, there's more pedestrians and bikes, it's a lower speed limit, and they just need to be more aware of their speed to protect those vulnerable users. And in the purple box, you can see reference to the bridge that's there. Some community members wanted to know if this could be converted to allow ped and bike traffic, just to keep them off the road. So that's something that's being evaluated. Okay, now those 15 countermeasures that are listed there, I'm going to quickly go through those just because each one of them was chosen for a specific reason, for a specific crash at a specific location. Starting with the number 1, the stop signs, 2 of the intersections are stop controlled, Laumania and Army Street. And just something as simple as putting in a new stop sign with bright retro reflectivity at night can reduce crashes as much as 17%. Number 2, just general signing and marking improvements, new signs, highly reflective signs and reflective pavement markings can also have a reduction in rear end crashes, angle crashes up to 49%. So these are low cost, simple countermeasures that can have a very high effective rate of reducing crashes. High visibility crosswalks, those are specifically bright yellow ones that have been used successfully near schools and other studies have shown they reduce pedestrian crashes as much as 37%. Prohibiting the left out movement. There's a lot of places this could be applied, but one place, just because of the crash history that we're recommending, is at Laumania. There's an alternate way for those folks to get out and turn left, and it's a lot safer. Left ins would still be allowed, but the left outs we're recommending that is restricted. Number 5, including leading a pedestrian interval at a signal. This is where the walk symbol flash starts about 5 seconds before the green light. So pedestrians can get out into the crosswalk before cars start turning left and right, and they just have a higher visibility, and it's been shown to reduce pedestrian crashes between 9 and 59%. Pedestrian countdown timers are very effective at reducing pedestrian crashes, 70% in one study, and even car crashes, rear end and angle, reduced by around 5%. Adding a left arrow can reduce the left turn crashes between 7 and 14%. Adding a right turn lane can reduce rear end crashes as much as 30%. And then verifying yellow and red times, it's just a simple calculation, but getting that number right can reduce pedestrian crashes up to 37% and rear end crashes a similar amount. Safe routes to schools is a way of just identifying routes for kids to walk and bike to school and eliminating safety hazards. Those programs have been proven to reduce crashes between 17 and 28%. pedestrian hybrid beacon we're suggesting near Army Street because it's not a signalized intersection right now, and along with number 13, advanced stop markings, those reductions can be between 55 and 69% of pedestrian crashes. A raised median is a method of, even if it's just for a short distance right near an intersection, it's extremely effective at reducing pedestrian crashes. A lot of studies have ranged between 32% and 86% reduction in pedestrian crashes just because they have that refuge. If a car is coming at them, they can jump into the median. But also rear end angle and left turn crashes all see dramatic reductions with a raised median. Number 14 is just that application that would go at La Mania to restrict the left out movement. It would still allow the left in, but that could reduce left turn crashes by up to 57%. And then the last one, left turn lane offset, is a just scooching the left lane over to the left a little bit so it allows people to see past the left turners from the opposing direction, has a very effective crash reduction rate for left turn angle and rear end crashes of around 32%. So I know that's a whole lot to take in right now, but I'd like you to take a look at this slide and study it and let us know your feedback on these suggestions. And now we'll move on to the preliminary solutions to reduce congestion. All right, two of the main things that DOT is already looking at is a computerized traffic control system in ʻāina and Nānākul. Those green bands that you see on Farrington Highway would coordinate and optimize the signals so that they work together better, and people can pass through the area more effectively. The center left turn lane in Maili is just so that this was something brought up by some people in our drive audit. It allows the eastbound left turners to just pull out of the through lane so that through traffic can continue and they're out of the way while they wait for a gap. The short right turn lanes at Haleakala, Lualua Naval, and Ma'aloa Street intersections will boost the level of service a little bit. It just lets those right turners slip into the lane a lot easier instead of having to wait behind people turning left. And then evaluating the extension of the fifth lane and contraflow. This is between Helalua and Hakimo, looking at extending the fifth lane and contraflow so that in the PM people could pass through that area more effectively. The second access is a long-term solution to allow people another route to get in and out of the leeward coast. That and some of the other ones down in the overall solutions are not strictly DOT solutions. These would need to be interagency projects where it involves the city and county and the Oahu MPO and other agencies that could get this done. Some of the other ones are completing the Waianae Coast Emergency Access Road routes. There's some that aren't completed, and just making the communication and management of detours more rapid. Developing and implementing a travel demand management plan to reduce trips. It has many different strategies to allow people other ways of getting to and from where they're going other than just taking a single car. Enhancing transit, sidewalk, and bicycle facilities for multimodal travel. Providing an express shuttle so that when the rail opens up, people can get to Kapolei without having to take their cars, and that could reduce traffic in and of itself. And then just an idea to encourage early traffic with favorable inbound signal timing early in the morning would just maybe get people out earlier and use the unused capacity in the early hours as opposed to when everybody's going in a little bit later. All right, next slide, please. We'll talk about preliminary solutions for resilience. So the three areas that came up in our drive audit of poor drainage were near Princess Kahanu, Lihoku, and Waianae Valley Road. There might be others, and we can add some, but those were the three primary ones that came up where we're recommending a drainage improvement. Then over near Mākaha, there's a lot of wave overwash onto the road, and so we're recommending study and implement solutions to prevent that, such as putting in a berm or sandbags or beach nourishment, and there are others too. Midterm, Oahu MPO is studying realignment of Farrington Highway near Mākaha, so just pulling it away from the coastline would aid in a long-term solution. The second access for resilience is also a long-term strategy to provide an emergency evacuation route if needed for a tsunami, a hurricane, whatever it may be. People would have more than just one way to get off the coast. Then the interagency ideas down there, again, completing the Waianae Coast Emergency Access Road routes and the communication and management. Updating the Waianae Sustainable Communities Plan. That's an important one because it will document the community values and preferences, and it will help decide which areas should be developed, preserved, where do we put parks, and it will help determine what transportation facilities need improvement, where they should go, how wide they should be, etc. It's really key in coming up with the right answers for these solutions. We could evaluate elevating Farrington Highway a little bit just to pull it out of the flooding, and then conducting a community vulnerability assessment to identify potential climate and hazard related impacts. Then also identifying and studying alternative adaptation strategies for the vulnerable areas. So again, a lot to take in on the resilience. So I'd encourage you to take a look at this and give us your questions and suggestions because we'd like to hear what you have to say. Next slide.
Okay, thanks, Sue. This is Jared again. I'm going to cover the next steps and wrap up this presentation. Here's how everybody can provide some input back to us. Go visit the project webpage provided here. Visit the virtual open house and online forum that will allow everyone to review materials, ask questions, and leave comments directly on any of the open house materials. The open house materials will be posted at the project website between April 30th and May 14, 2020, and comments will be accepted at any time during this period. So in addition to the open house and online forum, the project team will be hosting 2 virtual live Q&A sessions for both the Waianae Mākaha community on May 6 from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and Nānākul Mākaha community on May 7th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. During the Q&A, we encourage everyone to participate and ask questions regarding any of the open house materials posted. The dates for these live Q&A sessions are also provided on the project website, and please email or call Melissa May to RSVP. Following the conclusion of this round 2 of ʻāina meetings, we will start to prepare for the third round and final round of ʻāina meetings, where we plan to present our draft recommendations and have a discussion to identify priorities and phasing for any of the improvements identified. The virtual open house for the ʻāina meetings round 3 are scheduled for June 16th through June 30th. And we also have 2 more live Q&A sessions during the week of June 22nd. With that, that concludes this presentation. We just want to say mahalo to everybody that stuck with us through the presentation. And please contact us if you have any questions. Melissa's contact is on the screen right now. Or you can go to the project website, and there are other ways to reach out to us on the website. Mahalo.